There are moments in football that happen so fast, so suddenly that nobody in the stadium quite knows what to feel. 1 second, an entire nation is rewriting its own history. The next second, that history is taken away. Not by a tackle, not by a missed shot, not by a goalkeeper making a world-class save, but by a line. A virtual, invisible line that no human eye can see. That is exactly what happened in Seattle on the 26th of June, 2026, and it's a moment that is still being talked about everywhere football is followed. Iran versus Egypt, a group stage match that most people didn't have circled on their calendars. Not the glamour fixture of the tournament, not the headline game, but by the time the final whistle blew, it had become one of the most debated moments of this entire World Cup. And if you think you understand why that goal was ruled out, this video is going to make you look at it very differently, because the rulebook here goes deeper than most people realize, and the consequences for Iran extend far beyond one match. So let's start with what actually happened, because the sequence of events in Seattle was extraordinary. Iran came into the Egypt match knowing exactly what they needed. A win would put them through to the knockout rounds as runners-up in Group G, behind Belgium. Not just a historic moment for Iranian football, it would have been their very first knockout stage appearance in World Cup history. 7 previous tournaments, and Iran had never made it past the group stage. This was the chance. This was the game. The match itself was tense, scrappy, emotional. Egypt took the lead early through Mahmoud Saber in the 5th minute, a goal that dribbled through Ali Reza Baranvand in a moment the goalkeeper would rather forget. Iran came back swinging. They won a penalty in the 10th minute, but Mehdi Taremi, Iran's captain and talisman, saw his spot kick saved by Egyptian goalkeeper Mustafa Shober. It looked like one of those nights, the kind where nothing goes right, where every door shuts just as you reach for it. But then Ramin Rezayan pulled one back to level it, and suddenly the game was alive again. The crowd in Seattle was buzzing. Iran were pushing. Egypt were defending for their lives. And then in the 93rd minute, deep into stoppage time, with the clock running out and an entire nation watching from thousands of miles away, chaos erupted inside the penalty area. A free kick, a scramble, bodies everywhere, the Egyptian goalkeeper Shober off his line and completely out of position, and then Shoja Khalilzadeh, the Iranian center-back, pounced on a loose rebound and slammed the ball into the net. The stadium erupted. Khalilzadeh tore his shirt off in pure, uncontrollable celebration. Iranian players swarmed him. On the bench, coaching staff were on their feet. The commentators were losing their minds. For about 90 seconds, Iran were through to the round of 32 at the FIFA World Cup for the very first time. And then the VAR screen lit up. If you're enjoying this breakdown and you want to stay across every major moment from this World Cup, the controversies, the rule explanations, the stories nobody else is telling in this kind of detail, hit that subscribe button right now. There is a lot more coming your way. The referee, Szymon Marciniak from Poland, was called to the monitor, and after a lengthy review, the goal was ruled out, offside. Iran's World Cup dream, at least for that 93rd minute window, was over in an instant. The match ended 1-1. Egypt progressed. Belgium, who were busy dismantling New Zealand 5-1 in the other group game at the same time, topped the group, and Iran were left in 3rd place, staring at a long, agonizing wait to find out if their 3 points from 3 draws would be enough to sneak through as one of the 8 best 3rd-placed teams in the tournament. Now here's where a lot of people online got confused, and honestly, it's understandable. If you watched the replays, you could clearly see that there was still an Egyptian defender positioned behind Khalilzadeh when he scored, so how on earth was he offside? Wasn't there a defender deeper than him? Doesn't that make him onside? This is where the rulebook becomes genuinely fascinating and genuinely brutal. Most football fans understand the offside rule like this. If there's a defender behind you when the ball is played, you're onside. And that understanding is almost correct, but the word almost is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. The law doesn't say the last defender, it says the second last opponent. And the reason that distinction matters enormously in this specific incident is that the Egyptian goalkeeper had abandoned his goal line during the scramble. Schobert came rushing out, leaving his net empty. That meant he was no longer the last man back. He had moved up into the play. So in that moment, with the goalkeeper out of position, the last Egyptian outfield player became the reference point for the last defender, and the second last became the new offside line. And when you look at the freeze frame from that exact microsecond when the ball was flicked on, not when Khalilzadeh shot, but when the ball was redirected toward him, his foot had crossed that line. Not by much, not by something you could see with the naked eye, but the semi-automated offside technology being used at this World Cup doesn't care about the naked eye. It maps body positions in 3 dimensions and calculates the moment of contact to within fractions of a second. By the technology, his foot was beyond the second-last defender. But it goes even one layer deeper than that, because Khalilzadeh wasn't even the player who was flagged as offside first. In the build-up to his goal, during the scramble that followed the initial set piece, 2 other Iranian attackers had drifted into offside positions. Now, standing in an offside position is not itself a foul. You're only penalized if you become actively involved in play. And here is where FIFA's Law 11 gets very specific. The rulebook says a player in an offside position is penalized if they challenge an opponent for the ball or make an obvious action that clearly impacts the ability of an opponent to play the ball. Those 2 Iranian attackers in offside positions were right in the middle of the goal line scramble. They were competing for the ball. They were affecting what the Egyptian defenders could do. Under the law, from the moment they became active participants in that phase, the play was already tainted. And because the entire sequence, the scramble, the loose ball, Khalilzadeh's finish, all flowed from that compromised moment, the goal could not stand. Go and subscribe if you haven't already. This is exactly the kind of analysis that turns football viewers into football understanders. One click and you won't miss a thing. Now there's a bigger conversation happening around this decision, because when you strip away the technical rulebook explanation, what you're left with is a team being eliminated from a World Cup, at least from automatic qualification, because of what their goalkeeper's positioning meant for the geometry of an offside call. That is not something any football fan processes easily. It doesn't feel intuitive. It doesn't feel like the kind of thing a defender should have to think about in a 93rd minute scramble. Iran's coach, Amir Galanaway, was measured but clearly devastated at the post-match press conference. He said he accepts the rules and understands it's all based on technology, but he also said he was genuinely upset about the bad luck. And then he said something that stuck. "I used to think we were an oppressed team, but now I realize we're also an unlucky team." That comment carries a lot of weight when you consider everything Iran went through just to play these 3 group games. Their base camp had been moved from Arizona to Tijuana in Mexico ahead of the tournament, due to restrictions connected to the ongoing conflict between Iran and the co-hosting United States. Some members of their staff were denied visas and couldn't travel to the tournament at all. They were only permitted to enter the United States 2 days before the Egypt match. After every U.S.-based game, they were required to immediately board flights back to their camp in Mexico rather than staying overnight to recover, which the coach described as a significant physical disadvantage over a compressed tournament schedule. This is the 3rd time it had happened to them across the group stage. And yet, through all of that, Iran went unbeaten. 3 draws, 3 points. They beat no one, but they lost to no one either. Against Belgium, one of the strongest sides in the tournament, they held firm and drew 0-0. They came back from a goal down against both New Zealand and Egypt. Their goalkeeper, Alireza Bayramvan, was outstanding across the group stage. Their team showed genuine resilience and character in circumstances that no other team at this World Cup had to deal with. And still, in the end, it wasn't enough. Not because of a tactical failure, not because of a moment of individual error or poor preparation, but because of a foot, a front half of a boot straying marginally beyond a line that was reset by a goalkeeper rushing off his line in a panicked, chaotic 93rd minute scramble. After the match, Iran were 6th in the 3rd place standings going into the final round of group games on Saturday. On the surface, that sounds encouraging, but their position was fragile, and they needed results to go their way across multiple other groups. If the Algeria-Austria game ended in a draw, and Croatia beat or drew with Ghana, and DR Congo beat Uzbekistan, Iran were out. The worst-case scenario played out. Algeria and Austria drew 3-3. The results went against Iran across the board. They were eliminated, finishing 9th in the third-place rankings, not 8th, one spot outside the line, knocked out of a World Cup because of millimeters in the 93rd minute of a group stage game, and then confirmed out by other teams' results in matches happening hours later. Hit subscribe if this is the kind of storytelling you want more of. Every major controversy from this World Cup broken down properly, without hype and without shortcuts. The broader conversation around moments like these is one that football has been wrestling with for years. Semi-automated offside technology has made the decisions more accurate, there's no question about that. The days of the linesman guessing are gone. But accuracy and clarity are two very different things. The technology can tell you that a player's armpit or shoulder or front toe was 2 centimeters beyond the line. What it can't do is make that decision feel like football. The sport was built on moments, on passion, on the ball hitting the net and the crowd erupting. And when those eruptions are silenced 90 seconds later by a geometric calculation, something is lost, even if the calculation is technically correct. This is the central tension that FIFA is going to have to navigate for years to come. The tools they're using are more powerful than ever. The decisions are more defensible than ever. But football is not a sport that fans engage with through their intellect first. They engage with it through their gut. And their gut tells them that if you can look at a replay and clearly see a defender behind the attacking player, the goal should stand. The fact that the rule says otherwise, that the second-last opponent is what matters, not the last, is something that millions of fans still don't fully understand. And as long as that gap exists between the law and popular understanding, moments like the one in Seattle will keep generating controversy, regardless of whether the decision was right. The biggest question for FIFA going forward is not whether the technology works, it clearly does. The question is whether the way offside is explained, both in stadiums and in broadcasts, is good enough. Right now, fans in the stands watch a goal go in, celebrate, and then watch the flag go up, often with no clear explanation of why. In some venues, big screens show a basic graphic, but for something as complicated as the Iran goal, involving secondary offside, goalkeeper positioning affecting the reference line, and active involvement rules, a basic graphic doesn't come close to telling the story. People walk away confused, and confused fans become frustrated fans. What do you think? Do you believe the right call was made in Seattle, or does the rule need to be simpler? Leave your answer in the comments. Genuinely curious how many people understood the second-last defender element before watching this video. For Iran, the story ends here at this World Cup. 7 tournament appearances, 0 knockout round appearances, and now the most painful exit of all, not failing to qualify, but reaching the precipice and being pulled back by a line that nobody could see with their own eyes. Their coach spoke of hope for the future. Their players showed enough over 3 matches to suggest they belong at this level. But football doesn't give credit for nearly. It never has. The 2026 World Cup moves forward. The round of 32 is now underway, and the tournament is opening up. But the story of Iran versus Egypt, the 93rd minute, the celebration, the VAR review, the heartbreak, that story will stay with everyone who watched it for a long time.